I am Ben, also known as Zante. I am a senior security consultant at Pulse Security, and I have talked at a few Christchurch cons, but it's been a while. I've talked about stuff very similar to what you just watched with the kind of router Wi-Fi hacking. Today I've got something a little bit different for you. I'm going to talk about bypassing client isolation on Wi-Fi networks, and just a bit about me. Not kind of relevant to computers, but I do actually DJ quite a bit, spinning drum and bass music around Wellington, and this is kind of relevant information a little bit later on, so just keep that in the back of your mind. I do like posting stuff on LinkedIn sometimes. I think some people may have seen it in this room here. Anyway, client isolation. It prevents clients on the same network from talking to each other, essentially. So if you've got, like, say, I don't know, a coffee shop or a guest Wi-Fi, corporate guest Wi-Fi, BYOD network, something like that, I'm sure you've come across a Wi-Fi network that has client isolation. If Steve's got a VNC server running with no password on his PC, it's not going to be hacked because those clients can't talk to each other. It's a pretty handy security tool. How does it work? Well, normally, a packet's got to go through their access point, and the access point can go, well, I'm not going to forward this on to another client. Yeah, normally, we've kind of got this communication going backwards and forwards through the access point. This is what you expect a Wi-Fi network infrastructure, Wi-Fi network to look like. That's all good. So with client isolation on, so you can talk to the internet, you can go out. But if Steve wants to talk to Mary, no. Access point says no, drops a packet. That's what we expect, right? Of course, security control. Why is it needed? Well, as I just said, what if you're running some insecure network service, you connect to Starbucks' Wi-Fi, you don't want people controlling your PC over VNC, or you don't patch your PC or whatever. Mary can hack Steve, essentially. But how can we bypass it? Well, the very, very cool thing about Wi-Fi networks is, unlike a wired network, it's just radio frequencies floating around in the air. A monitor mode Wi-Fi adapter can sniff those packets, those frames, and we can also inject into the air. So what we can end up doing is we can establish client-to-client communication and just bypassing the access point. And it's the access point that's providing the client isolation. So we have the ingredients we need to bypass client isolation by just talking directly to clients on a network. So how does that look visually? So normally, going through the access point, not going to work. Client isolation is on. However, we've got the attacker, who's also a client, has a monitor mode Wi-Fi adapter, can craft frames, chuck them up into the air, and Steve, our victim client, will receive them and respond to them. And then we can just sniff those responses with our monitor mode adapter. So we're establishing this direct client-to-client, ad hoc style communication. And Steve doesn't know. Steve is not aware that Steve's not going through the access point anymore. We're just going straight client to client. So that's essentially a high level what we're going to be doing here. What's the tooling look like from the attacker's PC side of things? So the attacker, I have a Python script that I'll show you a bit later, but it sets up a tap interface. So Ethernet frames from whatever software on the attacker side, ping, TCP packets, whatever, anything goes through this tap interface into this Python script. Python script then converts that Ethernet frame into 82.11 Wi-Fi frame. Does all the various bits it needs to in order to be accepted by Steve, but essentially it's a bridge device between that tap interface, and then it sends those frames out into the air. Receiving is pretty much just the reverse. So the monitor mode adapter is used to sniff those frames, send them into the bridge script. It does what it needs to do to get those back into Ethernet frames for the tap interface, And then as far as the attacker's PC is feeling, it's just, it's sent the packets, it's been received, it doesn't know that it's gone through this kind of funky Python script situation. A critical part to make this work is in wireless networks, you've got what's called the frame control field. So this is first two bytes of a frame, which basically says, well, there are like other parts of this field, but the critical one is there's the from and to distribution system. So a distribution system is kind of like where our packets go out, but in this instance, it is typically like the access point, or the network switch, or something. That is the distribution system. But the main thing we need to do as the attacker is we need to craft packets that set that bit from DS bit to 1. So as far as Steve is concerned, when he receives that frame, this has been transmitted by the distribution system. Cool. If we don't do that, if we send it not appearing to be from the distribution system, Steve just ignores it and we can't do this attack. So that's a critical part. What does that look like in Skeppy? So for people that don't know, Skeppy is like a network sort of stack library for Python. It lets you like create, modify frames, that kind of thing. Is it the performative thing in the world? No, but it works and it's easy. Like you can create scripts and you can do weird stuff with packets. So what we're doing here is sending an ARP packet, chucking that up into the air with the monitor mode adapter, and you can see the red highlighted there is that from DS bit being set to 1. So that's going to set that bit in the frame control field to 1. So that's crucial. What about encryption, you might be asking? This all sounds good for open, unencrypted networks, but what about encryption? Don't people do, doesn't client establish keys, that kind of thing? Well, in WPA 2, encryption is not such a problem. So in WPA, it uses this key exchange process called the four-way handshake, which uses these equal frames get sent for kind of establishing the keys between every client and the access point. So they establish these keys and then everything is encrypted and decrypted with those. But the cool thing about wireless networks, and this is relevant to other attacks, if you start looking at wireless attacks, this is kind of relevant to those, but ultimately we need 2 keys. One is the temporal key, TK. That is the key that's used to encrypt the unicast traffic. So that's the traffic for just the individual client to the access point and back. And then there's the group temporal key, which is a shared key amongst everyone that connects to the network. And that is used to encrypt the broadcast traffic, so multicast traffic. So we need those 2 keys in order to kind of sit on the side and encrypt and decrypt traffic directly to our victim. But with all those ingredients, the monitor mode adapter, those keys, we have everything we need on an encrypted or Wi-Fi network to talk directly to another client. A point I want to make here is management frame protection. Yes, that is a problem if you want to de-authenticate clients on the network. So a point I want to make here was when you want to steal these keys, you have to wait for the authentication to happen. But the beautiful thing is you can just use aircrack and you can de-authenticate a client. That's going to force them to reconnect to the network and you can get the keys. So you don't have to wait unless the protected management frames is turned on. Then you go wait. It is a mild inconvenience, but it's not a mitigation against this attack. Aha. Do you remember I mentioned something about being DJ? I just want to remind you that is the case. I'm trying something a bit fun with this demo. So it's demo time, it's a video. Let's see how it goes. It sounds amazing. Hey, it's me, DJ Zante. So I heard that it's a really, really bad idea to do a live demo with radio frequencies. So I've been asked by this guy, whoever he is, to help with the live demo today. Firstly, let's check that client isolation is working as we expect and the traffic gets blocked. Told you I was trying to have fun with it. Thanks, little Zante. You can see here on the left-hand side, it's trying to ping the laptop on the right, not getting responses. This is what we expect with client isolation. These two clients cannot talk to each other. The laptop on the left, right is very busy playing solitaire. This is actually me playing solitaire. I just screen recorded myself playing solitaire, if you're wondering. Anyway, hey, DJ Zante, do you mind setting up for the open Wi-Fi networks?
Sure thing, man. But do I really have a choice?
Not really. Not really. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the configuration for the tool that I've written that does this attack, which, as I mentioned before, is in Python. I just want to kind of point to the important bits here. So you need to know a little bit about the network that you are attacking. So the channel that's on its SSID, its BSSID, the IP range it's using. I can go into details later after the talk if you're interested in things like DHCP, but for now, static IP is the attacker. So we just need to fill out that. Right, so what we're going to show here is kind of just getting the environment set up. So we've got a alpha Wi-Fi adapter which can do monitor mode plugged into the laptop, and I'm just running through like getting it into monitor mode, setting it to the right channel, like scanning Wi-Fi networks and just double checking all those details. And again, we're just using existing tooling for this. So like Aircrack will scan wireless networks, check the channel, that kind of thing. So our target network is the OPN one. I appreciate it's quite small to see, but that is our target network. So just setting the channel, again, crucial. Again, we could use existing tooling to check packet injection. So Aircrack can do that check for us, 29 out of 30, good enough. But it works. We know that we can inject packets into the air on that network, which is good. Cool. So what I'm doing now is running that bridge script that I mentioned earlier. This is the one I wrote to pass those packets through, going to do the ARP scan, see who's on the network. We got one IP on the network. That's cool. So this is already good. We've already bypassed client isolation because we can do an ARP and see who's on the network. You can see I've started a ping here. It does take a while. I don't know, it's kind of like a train. Like it just takes a bit of time to start working. But there you go, it is really slow to begin. But we've got packets that are being responded to. That's good. We have bypassed client isolation at this point on an open network. So yes, we are very much winning. Also doing an Nmap scan. So takes a little bit of time. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it works. And we can see what network services are there. I don't know why I chose VNC server to be like the go-to exploitable network service, but I'm just sticking with it for this talk. But we're doing an Nmap scan just to see what our victim might have listening. There we go. Cool. Port 5900. If you're familiar with VNC, it's got a default port. Cool. Promising. Thank you. Thank you. All right, DJ Zante, can we set up for WPA2? We're going encryption. We're going trickier. We're doing encryption WPA2.
Aha, of course. Now we're getting really tricky.
Thanks, man. Right, the configuration for this, again, we're just looking at the configuration for the tool that I wrote. Configuration looks very similar. The difference here is that we're telling it we're going to be encrypting the packets. It's a WPA2 network, which is why it's CCNP encryption. It's just what I chose to call the configuration field, but we're telling it we're going to do encryption. We also need the PSK for the network. And this is an interesting fact, but we're not actually connecting to the network, if that makes sense. So we kind of sit on this weird sideline, but we do need we do need the PSK because the PSK is used to derive those keys that we talked about before, the temporal key and the group temporal key. So we're not actually legitimately connecting to the network. Like the MAC address on that configuration is just one that popped out of my head. The access point doesn't know about us, but we need these sort of bits of ingredients to talk to clients. It's a funny kind of middle zone that we're operating in here. So let's see that in action. So there is an additional script. Again, this is in the code repo that I will link later, but I called it WPA key capture. What that does is it's just constantly sniffing for those authentication frames, and it pulls out the TK and the GTK. If you are interested in kind of going into more depth around the four-way handshake, check out that article. Again, I'll link it later. I'm kind of glossing over it, but that is essentially what's happening. We're getting those two keys we need. You can see that bridge script is running again. We've got now encrypted packets going to and from our victim. And again, we're going to ping a lib, always ping, but that's got to be the go-to, test connectivity thing. So we're on a WPA2 network with client isolation on, and we're trying to talk to this victim. You can see it's taking a little bit, it's the train again. It's taking a while to get the train moving, but it does start. So again, yes, we have bypassed client isolation, this time on a WPA2 network, which is amazing. We're going to nmap again just to, it's a bit contrived, but let's pretend that it's the same victim has connected to the network. We just want to see if the VNC is still listening. This time we're going to actually connect to it, demonstrate that it actually works. So only scanning one port, so it took a few seconds to go there. All right, we've got VNC, let's connect to it. Let's see if there's a password. Let's see, can we hack Steve and his solitaire playing business? Gives you a bit of a feel, like a big flurry of packets going through that bridging script. Connecting. This is where we cross everything, our fingers, our toes, and there we go. We've client us. Thank you. Client isolation on WPA2 network. We've connected over VNC to a victim client. That client isolation is no longer providing network security to that client. Zante, DJ Zante, mate, thank you for your help. You've been a big help.
Anytime, mate. And everyone, enjoy the rest of the con. I'll see you later.
Thanks, man. I love this song. If you like the song too, I'll chuck a Spotify link or something in the chat. But as I mentioned before, I did write up a technical article for the Pulse Security website. You can see a picture there. It does go into a bit more detail on some of the things I glossed over a little bit, like the four-way handshake. Because there's keys on keys on keys that you'll be bored to death, and everyone's looking forward to lunch. So if you do want that kind of more technical depth, check that article out. Here is the link to that, and also a link to on GitHub. I have checked all the tooling you need. All you need is a wireless network with client isolation on, and a Wi-Fi adapter that can do monitor mode. The two things you need, and the tools. But please do give it a go. I'm really keen to hear how people get on with it. As we saw, it worked on this host APD network, but maybe there's some other weird intricacies with different vendors that I'm not aware of. Please let me know. So I guess looping back on that, the dotted line shows, Mary, evil hacker, cannot attack Steve. Can't connect to that VNC server because the access point is blocking that connection because of client isolation. Well, what we've demonstrated here is it is in fact possible to make that client-to-client connection, and now poor Steve is hacked. If you have a Wi-Fi network and you're like, what's the mitigation for this? I'm a bit worried that my networks are now are relied on client isolation. A bit worried now. WPA3 did make big improvements in terms of that key exchange process. So it uses the simultaneous authentication of equals that has like perfect forward secrecy. So unlike WPA2, you could just sniff those frames. Now you have everything that you need to establish that connection. I don't want to say something is impossible. We like to test the impossible. Not impossible, but just really infeasible. So with WPA3, I think like really infeasible. But maybe you'd have to be in the middle of that authentication as opposed to just kind of passively sniff it. So I'm very interested to hear if people have thoughts on that. But yeah, never say never, but very infeasible. Enterprise auth, unlike a PSK network, all you need is a PSK. And you have everything to derive those keys. Enterprise auth, you need to steal the EAP credentials for every individual client. Again, not like impossible, but just really infeasible. So if you can roll enterprise auth on the Wi-Fi network, that is a really good mitigation. Of course, it's not viable everywhere. Also, as I was kind of looking around for possible mitigations, I came across, honestly, I hadn't heard of this, but private PSK. PPSK, where you have separate PSKs, and depending on what PSK you use, you get put in a different VLAN. Like that's kind of just shifting the network security, you know. So maybe in some instances that is a good mitigation, depending on what your use case for your wireless network is. So something to consider. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. That is me, and I just want to reiterate: please give the tool a go. And chat to me, and even here, like if you've got a laptop and an access point and you want to sit with me and get it working, just ask. I really want, if possible, if I have enough kind of stories, to update that article on the Pulse website with some kind of war stories. You know, it worked like running responder and I could steal hashes or something like that. Like, give it a go. Just don't expect the best performance out of it. It's scapy, it's network stack in Python. Like it works, but it's just not super performative. But yes, anyway, thank you, and thanks for indulging my fun with little Zante there. Yeah, I was a bit afraid about like doing a live demo. Live demos are terrifying, aren't they? Anyway, thank you very much. That is me.
I am a super genius.